Dating is often described as a search for love, connection, and fulfillment. But beneath the surface, hidden forces shape who we're drawn to and the patterns we repeat. One of the most powerful of these forces is what Carl Jung called the shadow self. The parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or refuse to acknowledge. And yet, in ways we rarely notice, the shadow has a habit of stepping onto the stage of our relationships. It influences attraction, creates recurring cycles of heartbreak, and often pulls us toward the very trouble we think we're trying to avoid. The shadow is everything about ourselves we've pushed into the dark. Maybe it's anger we were punished for showing as children, or ambition we learned would make others uncomfortable. Sometimes it's qualities we were taught were unacceptable, like selfishness, jealousy, or dominance. But it's not all negative. Our shadow can also hold confidence, creativity, or assertiveness we buried to fit in. These parts don't disappear just because we've hidden them. Instead, they slip out sideways, especially in love. Think about it. The qualities we push down inside ourselves often show up in the partners we feel most magnetized to. Someone who represses their own assertiveness might feel irresistibly drawn to a dominant, commanding personality. Someone who avoids conflict may find themselves entangled with lovers who argue and rage on their behalf. Attraction in this way isn't just about chemistry, it's about projection. The shadow finds expression through the people we chase. This is why we often fall for people who represent both desire and danger. The allure of the bad boy, the excitement of the unpredictable partner, the thrill of someone who feels untamed. All of these fascinations can be traced back to what we've hidden in ourselves. We may say, consciously, that we want kindness, stability, or long-term security. But if a hidden part of us craves chaos, if we've never given ourselves permission to live with intensity, then the shadow pulls us towards someone who will embody it for us. The problem is that attraction built on projection rarely leads where we hope. When we project, we're not falling in love with the person in front of us. We're falling in love with the mirror they hold up to our unconscious. We mistake the reflection for reality, and sooner or later, reality disappoints us. The thrill fades, the danger turns destructive, and we find ourselves back where we started, wondering why we can't seem to break the cycle. These cycles are one of the clearest signs of the shadow at work. Many people notice they keep dating the same type of person over and over, despite promising themselves they've learned their lesson. The caretaker who always attracts wounded partners, never receiving the same care in return. The peacekeeper who ends up with volatile lovers, living in constant tension. The person afraid of abandonment who keeps chasing emotionally unavailable partners. These aren't coincidences. They are patterns orchestrated by the shadow, guiding us back to old wounds until we finally face them. Without awareness, the shadow doesn't lead us to love, it leads us to lessons. To understand why these lessons feel so magnetic, we have to go back to childhood. The shadow often begins in those early years when we learned what was acceptable and what wasn't. If anger led to punishment, we buried it. If sadness was mocked, we swallowed the tears. If independence made our caregivers uneasy, we traded it for compliance. We learned to disown parts of ourselves in order to survive and be loved. But as adults, dating becomes the stage where those buried parts reappear. A partner who withholds affection may trigger the child in us who felt unseen. A controlling lover may echo the authority figure who once dominated us. We're not just dating people in the present, we're reenacting unfinished business from the past. This is why attraction can feel irrational. It's not just about who someone is today, but about how they awaken the ghosts of our earliest relationships. So how do we recognize when the shadow is pulling the strings? One sign is intensity that feels magnetic, but doesn't make sense. If you find yourself drawn to someone who provokes extreme emotions, obsession, jealousy, rage, or fear, it's worth asking, what part of me is being reflected back? Other clues include feeling both attraction and resentment toward the same traits, repeating relationship patterns despite knowing they harm you, or struggling to leave relationships that clearly undermine your growth. These are all signals that your unconscious is at work. The solution isn't to demonize the shadow. The shadow is not your enemy. It's a messenger. It wants to be acknowledged. The real danger comes from ignoring it. Awareness transforms projection into integration. When you can see what your shadow is doing, you can begin to reclaim the qualities you've disowned. Integration begins with asking hard questions. If you always fall for controlling partners, where have you surrendered your own power? If you're drawn to chaos, what part of you craves intensity but has no safe outlet? Instead of outsourcing these qualities to your partners, can you own them consciously within yourself? There are many practical ways to begin this work. Journaling can help. Write about the qualities in partners that trigger you, then explore how those traits live in you. Shadow dialogue is another tool. Imagine having a conversation with your shadow, giving voice to the parts you've silenced. Therapy or mentorship can offer guidance and help uncover patterns too deep to face alone. And conscious dating is perhaps the most immediate practice. Before pursuing someone, pause and ask whether the attraction is rooted in growth or in projection. The more you integrate, the more your relationships shift. Instead of unconsciously chasing what's missing, you begin to choose partners from a place of wholeness. You recognize red flags faster, set healthier boundaries, and feel less gripped by the pull of toxic dynamics. The shadow doesn't disappear. It never does. But once integrated, it no longer controls you from the dark. It becomes part of your conscious self, a source of strength rather than sabotage. And this is the great paradox of the shadow. When we stop denying it, we stop being enslaved by it. Instead of being pulled toward partners who embody what we've rejected, we become free to build relationships rooted in authenticity, balance, and growth. Love then becomes less about reenacting wounds and more about creating something new. In the end, the shadow is not here to ruin our relationships. It's here to teach us. Every attraction, every heartbreak, every cycle we repeat is a signal pointing back to the parts of ourselves we've left in the dark. The trouble we attract in dating is not random. It's the unconscious asking to be seen. And when we bring light to the shadow, relationships stop being battlegrounds for unresolved pain. They become spaces for genuine connection, mutual respect, and deeper love. So the next time you feel pulled toward someone who feels like both danger and desire, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this attraction a step toward growth, or is it my shadow calling for attention? That one question could be the difference between repeating an old story and writing a new one. If this video gave you something to reflect on, share your thoughts in the comments. What patterns have you noticed in your own dating life? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Knowledge of Legends, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future explorations into psychology and philosophy.